Rock of Deerness, Orkney, summer 1995. Witness notes 23. After you have read these introductory paragraphs once, you can skip to the new, old content here. If you are listening, then the timestamp is around the 2-minute 45-second mark. Introduction. The word settled to me carries connotations I am keen to avoid. I have never felt settled, or perhaps I cannot recall a time I felt settled. I do not feel settled now, writing this, and I've lived in the same house for 3.5 years. Without even discussing the obvious issues of colonisation, I just don't feel like I could or should settle. Better to keep my constituent parts shook up, agitated perhaps, rather than separating stagnant. Instead, I feel as though I have been travelling for years, maybe because I have not lived in my home nation of Scotland for 8.5 years. Perhaps because I know I won't stay here forever, or maybe because I carry that concept of home in a way which differs from many. More precisely, I still think of myself as a slow traveller, globally feral. Recently, I have been revisiting places through the photographs and words I recorded when my feet crossed their soil. This is a way of reminding myself of where I have been, not just in space and time, but in mind too. It is a wonderful thing to come out of below and rediscover myself through words I crafted, through the lens of a camera, when memory has wandered in the fog for too long. Thank you, past me. When I first started sharing letters with the world in this fashion 6 or more years ago, I usually began them with a vignette of where I was, a sort of travel diary mixed with nature observation, locking in the setting for the reader before I spoke of other things, and by so doing ensuring that place fed into the whole. It was a useful device for a reader and myself both, but as these letters were sent to so few readers, and now languish archived behind a paywall, I thought it a shame not to share these snippets again. As such, I am going to share a short series of these sketches accompanied by a photograph from that time, sent to you in date order, beginning with the second eldest. I shall include the above paragraphs in each of the letters in this series, but I shall also include a link at the very start so you can skip ahead once you are familiar with the above words. If you are listening and similarly want to skip, then the timestamp you want to navigate to will be in the same place. Taken without these paragraphs, each is a short read, and I hope you enjoy them. Rock of Deerness, Orkney, summer 1995. I am partway up the cliff when I realise my mistake. Not climbing in welly boots, nor climbing without ropes, both are normal, but picking a route which takes me too close to a fulmar nest. Usually I check this, but on this particular day I did not notice a bird tucked into a ledge, away from view. I see the bird sees me, and as is the custom of fulmar, it leans forward to try and vomit a foul-scented mess on me. I lean back, which is of course a mistake. Sticky, oily vomit or not, leaning back from a cliff face is unwise. The rock I was holding starts to come away, comically slow. It, like much of this cliff, was loose, held together on one plane, fractured on another, like so many of us. Something pulls the wrong way, and you come apart. I fall. It is not that far to the rocks below, but it is far enough to make me understand the gravity of the situation, as I am weightless, attracted by gravity and thoroughly seen off by a cousin of the albatross family. Damn tube noses. When I was young, Deerness Primary School had 2 classrooms, the big end and the PD end. I was in the former, and my teacher at that time was the headmaster, writer, Orcadian scholar, and collector of stories, Gregor Lamb. I remember a story he used to tell, one which seems fitting to slip into this piece here. It took place not far from where I was falling on the now uninhabited island of Coppensee. A visitor to the island, perhaps someone connected to the lighthouse, or maybe someone visiting during the war years when the population of Orkney became swollen like the corpse of a beached whale, I forget which, asked to go along with one of the families who still lived there as they went to collect eggs. Now, collecting eggs in our modern parlance might sound quaint for many. It is something not too many city-based folk have done after all, and in their mind probably involves ducking into a chicken coop and plucking out the eggs neatly arranged there. As someone who has actually collected eggs, I can affirm that yes, this is often the case, but quite often it is considerably more work than that. The eggs have been hidden, the chickens do not want you to take them. You slip and end up sitting in chicken poop. You bang your head trying to escape the angry hen. However, in the case in point in this tale, the eggs were considerably more free-range than this. Coffensea is gently sloping, rising up from the direction of mainland Orkney and Deerness, where I lived at that time, to the other side of the island, stark and naked to the whims of the North Sea, sheer cliffs, not unlike the one I was climbing. The tourist, the visitor, whoever they were, watched as the man tied a rope around the waist of one of his children and lowered them down to gather seabird eggs. They would scramble this way and that, filling a basket with the eggs and avoiding the angry parents as best they could. It was a dangerous, messy business, but essential for survival, the eggs feeding the family for a long time, able to be traded for other items, all of which needed to be rowed across from the mainland. Watching this, mildly horrified at the risks taken with the children, the man asked the father, "What happens if a rope breaks?" To which he received a reply, "Well, don't worry, I've plenty more rope." Of course, this reply would have been in Orcadian dialect, a rich and beautiful thing, a remnant of the past, thankfully being guarded for our future. As I fell, I wonder if that story popped into my head. Perhaps. It seems more likely I used that time to try and direct my downwards descent, successfully as it turned out, landing on the only patch of grass and sea pink amongst a mass of jagged rock. I still badly twisted my knee, but was able to mostly laugh it off. The walk home was not fun, however, and I seem to recall that was the last time I ever climbed in Wellington boots. I've also been wary of Fulmar ever since, and ever since, my right knee hurts in wet weather, or, increasingly, if I'm honest, dry weather too. Finally, if you can afford to, there are currently 2 direct ways to support my work here. The first is to take out a paid subscription. The second way to support me here is to use my Ko-fi button link to send a tip of any amount. If you enjoyed this letter and wish to share it with others, please do so. I love it when someone shares my work. I also love it when you comment on a piece. Really, really love it. Thank you. Finally, many thanks for reading. I truly appreciate each and every one of you who does.